We'll call a meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is the next item discussion of the rules of procedure?
Actually,
Or is that later?
We can do
Mr.
that.
Interim
We
said
can do
we
that later
we
if
could
you
do it
like,
at the
after
conclusion.
the other business is taken care of.
Okay. Then we have a consent agenda that was prepared for us. I think we've had an opportunity to look it over. If there's nothing, I understand we're not approving.
We're going to move this to Wednesday,
Okay.
if that's okay with everyone.
Sorry.
Move that to Wednesday, that's okay. Consent agenda was prepared and mailed to all of us at least a week ago. And if there are no items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as prepared.
Mr. President, I would like to pull item number 6 from the consent agenda and move it to the non-consent agenda.
Okay? That's personnel actions. Items 6 is personnel actions.
Yes.
Now, is that considered a motion when we do it or not? Or
No.
we just
No,
make that
it's just,
change?
We just make that change, we move it to the
and it's the
non-consent
very
agenda.
first thing that's done under non-consent.
And I'm okay with that, so that's fine.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda without item 6?
So moved.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye. Item 6.
Item 6 is a recommendation to approve the following personnel action. It's Kelly Kriebel, a vehicle operator, non-CDL. It's a new hire effective 1/16/2018.
Is there discussion? Is there a motion to approve that personnel action?
I'll make the motion to approve the personnel action in item 6.
I guess I have to ask. I will second the motion, but I need to ask why we moved it out of consent agenda if there was a reason.
This is an actual personnel item that I need to abstain from.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Judith?
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Painter,
Abstain.
And non-consent agenda, we have a resolution to approve our bills, $1,797,194.19. Resolution 001-18. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye. Item 8. We need to discuss this apparently.
Item 8 is the designation of county commissioner to serve on the Clermont County Automatic Data Processing Board for calendar year 2018 in compliance with section 307.84 of the Ohio Revised Code.
In previous years and iterations, it's been the president of the board that has served in that capacity, I think, but maybe
because
not.
that's what the statute said, but the statute has been changed.
Okay.
And I believe Mr. Painter served in that capacity.
No, not on the data processing.
I'm sorry, the Board of Revision.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to serve in that capacity if I may, so I'll put my name out there.
I'll make a motion then to have our current president, Commissioner Humphrey, serve on the Automatic Data Processing Board.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Even though I suggested it, I'm going to abstain. The next is,
you did abstain, right?
yes, I did. The next is County Board of Revisions for calendar year 2018. Again, I'd like to serve in that capacity if it's a pleasure of the other members.
Motion?
Yeah. I make a motion that our current president, Edwin H. Humphrey, serve for 2018 on the County Board of Revisions.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Abstain. Item number 10, Investment Advisory Committee for Clermont County for 2018. It is both a designee and an alternate.
actually, it's two.
Oh, two designees.
Two county commissioners.
Sorry, two designees.
I'd like to make a motion that myself and Commissioner Humphrey, if he's interested in continuing to serve.
So you wouldn't be able to nominate yourself.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then I won't. Unless Mr. Painter is willing to do that, that's fine. That's good.
Is that open for discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to serve if the will of the board would be okay with that.
And I'd like to serve if there will be.
Huh.
He's quite a noise with it.
I'll make a motion then that Commissioner Humphrey and Commissioner Painter serve on the Investment Advisory Committee.
Is there a second?
Well,
I think you have to
You have to
take
do
this
one at a time.
right?
I think we just.
Yes, we can certainly take them one at a time.
Okay,
So
we'll make a
first will
motion
be-
then for Commissioner Humphrey to serve on the
Okay.
Investment Advisory Board.
Got it.
Second?
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Abstain.
and then the second.
I'll make a motion that Commissioner Painter serves on the Investment Advisory Board for 2018.
Second.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Painter,
Abstain.
That's cleared that one. I think.
Got that one.
Okay. Records Commission for calendar year 2018. I think that's been the president of the
It
board.
has
but
in the
you
past,
said
but this is
it's
the way
now
the
open
statute reads
again.
now.
Okay,
Would you like to serve, Commissioner Humphrey?
yes.
I'll make a motion then that Commissioner Humphrey serves on the County Records Commission for 2018.
Second?
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey,
Abstain. Area 12 Executive, Chief Elected Official Consortium. I'd like to recommend Mr. Peter for that position.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Humphrey,
Aye.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Abstain.
So the next is to designate to serve as an alternate.
to Mr. Painter.
Huh?
To serve as an alternate to Mr.
To
Painter.
Mr. Painter for the Area 12. And so would you like to do that, Mr. Commissioner Ubel?
No, I would not.
Okay, then I will. I would like to, so.
Make a motion that our president, Edwin H. Humphrey, serve as the alternate on the Area 12 Chief Consortium for calendar year 2018.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Abstain. Item 13 is appointment to serve on the Clermont County Library Board as a trustee. And I'd like to recommend Tony Cardinal, who lives in the Milford area.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I can make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Ubel?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Okay, number 14.
That is your designation as president, and we're just letting the record show to that effect?
Serve on the Adams Clermont Solid Waste District Management Policy Committee. And is that not all three of us?
No, it is just the president of the board pursuant to that statute.
Okay.
And we have a recommendation from Paul Brosh to the board to designate John McManus to serve on that committee.
To recommend to the president.
Correct.
I don't understand. Try that again.
You as president,
Designation.
you as the president
Yep.
serve on the committee. As an alternate in your absence,
Okay, John McManus.
yes.
Is,
Thank you.
Is there a motion to that effect?
No, actually, no, because it's solely your designation.
Okay, then John McManus is my selection for alternate.
Thank you.
Item 15.
Item 15 is a recommendation to adopt resolution number 002-18, resolving to recognize programs for which county funds may be expended to purchase limited refreshments and to specify these activities are for legitimate and necessary public purposes. Therefore, for calendar year 2018 is set forth in Exhibit A. And there's one expenditure for $16,300. That's the Southwest Ohio Regional Training Center, and that expense goes towards foster training for foster parents.
Yep.
And that is why that is more significant than the others.
Okay.
I did forward that topic paper, Tom, in and as it relates to the Southwest Ohio Regional
Okay.
Training Center to them
Okay.
when I forwarded the draft agendas.
Do we have a
If-
motion to adopt resolution 2-18?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Tom, I understand that that's a large meeting when it comes to putting all those people together for that training, right?
Yes.
It's usually held in August or,
Yeah, I think it's annual, just an
Right,
annual.
and it
training.
is.
It's one of the basic
3
expenses.
3 days, Holiday Inn.
Like a
there's
Friday,
probably
Saturday?
100 to 150 people that come for the weekend for their required
Right.
training. So,
and this handles the food aspect of it, and some other fund handles the
Lodging.
lodging.
Okay.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Ubel?
yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye. And that concludes our business for today.
We have a discussion item
Okay, back to discussion item.
regarding the rules of procedure. So
Okay,
Judy Kasika and I and Ernie Ramos from the Civil Division worked on these over the last couple of months. Most of those changes are format changes, but there are some content that we did change. I provided this to the board members about 2 weeks ago. So I can open it up for discussion or any questions that you may have. Just a reminder that public participation is not a requirement. If the board so chooses, we do not have to include it on the agenda. And also,
do we have to do that now and say it, when we don't want it on there, or is the agenda the clerk's to prepare?
I suspect that this was placed for discussion to have open discussion, and then if directed, we'll bring it back on Wednesday for the board. If there are any other changes to be made.
Correct.
Well, historically, before we changed this policy, allowing the public participation, I think we allowed public participation if someone notified the administrator or assistant administrator or the clerk in advance. That was the original policy, which
I believe that is correct. I don't have the original policy here in front of me, but I do recall that it was to contact the county administrator to come before the board. And there was some question as to the determination of the administrator to bring that public discussion before the board prior to the board even knowing that it was coming about. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, that's correct. Prior to, it was a decision by the board,
It was
which
kind
would
of
have
the
to be
cart
made in
before
open
the
session.
horse.
Yeah, I think it could be
Inlet.
easily the decision of the administrator.
So currently in this draft, that's not required. So if someone wanted to come to the board, they could contact the office and say, I want to come to a session.
So in
To
this
speak before
draft,
the board.
where are we?
In this draft, you're not required to contact the administrative offices to notify them that you want to come to session to speak.
we don't know if there's public participation or not until we get here and ask for it.
Unless the board wants me to determine who wants to speak. And if it's I'd have to determine whether or not it's under the purview of the county responsibilities, and that's a difficult thing to do.
I'd like to see the county administrator or assistant administrator decide that and let us know in advance.
Mr. Painter, your thoughts?
I don't think it's too much to ask anybody if they have a real issue and they would like to bring that to the county and to the commissioners, that they plan ahead, is what I'm saying.
So there's really two items there. One is prior notification, which wouldn't be an issue,
And approval by the...
and I can tell them what the rules are to participate, and that's not an issue. It would be whether or not it's under the purview of the county's responsibilities, and I could determine
Is it
that.
the county's responsibilities or the county commissioner's responsibility?
Ultimately, it would be the county commissioner's responsibilities. However, someone could come in with public participation and ask about a pothole. It's really not under your purview, but we could direct someone to the county engineer's office, and that is part of the rules, the draft.
It seems like what we've had in the past, back years ago when I was here, people contacted the county administrator or staff and were directed to the right people without ever coming to a session to describe their pothole to us. So if someone had a concern, they talked to the county administrator or someone in staff and were directed to the right position to handle their concern.
They were all, having been one of those people that was often referred,
Yep.
that I would indicate to them that they're more than willing and able to come, but if they are interested in expediting exactly what they're speaking of, that I understand, this is the protocol and we'll expedite that, but you may still come before the Board of County Commissioners to further discuss it. If you're not satisfied, or you can call me back and I can certainly place you on the agenda.
And we
And in
currently
most
do that.
instances,
Yeah.
that's what, it has resolved their position, because what they really want is, they don't want to take the time to come during their work, whatever, if there is another way in order to resolve it. If they're not satisfied with that resolution, then they certainly can come before the board if it is your purview.
Yeah, I'd hate to see somebody take the day off work to come in here and talk about something which we really can't affect or help them with, other than putting them in the right office, which could be the auditor's office or the recorder's office or the engineer's office.
Or not under your purview at all. It could be something at a regional level or state level or even a federal level. Certainly willing to help them, give them names and addresses and telephone numbers of people that would be the proper contact, but,
And currently, we do that.
Yes, we do.
And
Well, I was just-
95% of the time, we redirect people to where they need to go.
But we're really talking about two different things. I mean, we receive calls in the office all the time where somebody's wanting particular information or wants to get to some department. Who do I talk to?
Correct.
And those people get directed to the right place. I think the other discussion here is just public participation. I mean, typically, not just that we had a requirement that was in here about making a determination when you actually called and wanted to speak in public participation as to whether the information you were going to present was pertinent to the board and that kind of things. That makes it really difficult because then there's a decision that has to be made somewhere, somehow, as to what is pertinent to the board or not. I think just having a meeting agenda that just calls for public participation, if someone is here in the public that wants to address the board from the podium, having a 5-minute delineation on it, and that is strictly adhered to, is, an easy way to handle that. I know on the boards I served on before, in the ones that I go to in the township, there's a portion that comes to that meeting agenda where they ask for public. Is there anybody here that wants to participate in public participation? If you do, you have 5 minutes, and if that's held strictly and they speak their piece and we move on, I would think that that's the easiest open way to handle that. That's just mine.
Without them calling for advance
Yes.
participation.
And if it's just, you hear what they have to say and they go on, and it wasn't pertinent to the board, well, that's fine. You can get with them right after that meeting and say what you presented, this board, that really needs to go over to. Because I can't really think of, in the year that we've had, there hasn't been a whole lot of public participation.
Oftentimes, it may be a situation that's come up as a result of a program or a project that may be in the works, and there may be an issue that has not been resolved to their satisfaction.
Right.
Whether or not it's landscape restoration or I can think of one instance where a gentleman came in with the number of main breaks on Ward's Corner Road and what continuous flooding and the responsiveness of the Water Resources Department, and then finally the determination of this is on our 5-year capital plan, but perhaps we need to move it up a year in order to address that issue. And that's one issue I can remember.
City of direction.
Well, we can allow someone or require someone to notify the office prior to coming. It would be, I don't know if it's the administrator's decision to say to them, well, you can't come, because I don't believe it's under the purview of the county commissioners. Because it may be something that you want to hear about. That's what we do now. We try
Well,
to just
it could
deflect
be-
most of that.
So Mr. Painter was suggesting we just have a public participation part. They don't need to call in, if I
Without any
remember hearing you
requirements other
correctly.
than a
They don't
time
need to
allotment?
call in advance. Just come, talk to us.
And that's what this draft does.
Okay,
It does
that's
not
what
require,
this
yeah, it does
draft
not
is.
require prior notification.
Okay, I think this draft is fine then, personally. Is there anything else we need to discuss in this draft?
Just a couple of things. I have added the county staff elected officials discussion, and that is something we've done in the past, and we've done continuously over the past 5 or 6 months. And this is just discussion between the board and county staff or an elected official. So Suki was here to talk about the enterprise leasing, and we've had other staff members to discuss things with the board. And those used to be called work sessions, I believe, Judy. Those are quite lengthy. So those are part of the agenda at the end of the agenda so we can take care of the regular business. The caveat would be that they would not be video recorded. There's no formal action taken by the board, and they could take quite a bit of time to discuss something. So I want to make sure the board realize that that's in the draft as well. Any questions or concerns about that?
What's the difference between a work session and an informal session? Or is there no informal?
There's no such thing as an informal session.
There's
Didn't we
no
used to
such
have that?
thing
Yeah.
as a work session or an informal
Correct.
session. They're either sessions or not sessions. But within this group, we contrived the work session idea as a time where currently we go off an agenda and we follow the agenda. And it was a way to get off agenda and have a discussion about various topics, and the minutes were taken as the meeting proceeded. That's before we approved the minutes. We've changed the way we've approved our minutes now, so that they're approved at the next meeting or some following meeting. And that got us away from the need for having an informal session, so.
The other
Which is-
aspect, if you can recall, Commissioner Humphrey, is that we used to have those work sessions or whatever in lieu of maybe a Monday, a two-time for 6 months of the year, where you could come in and have presentations or discussions about issues that would not be so lengthy that it would be in conjunction with your regular session of the Board of County Commissioners.
And you're talking about this elected official discussion is a regular session or a special session as needed. The only difference there is it's not, because of its length and it's what you get into, you're not going to spend the time to videotape it, but it's still going to be recorded in the minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's part of session, just an agenda item.
Technically, we're not required to videotape anything, so it would be
Your choice.
a choice, and the procedures that you have put together seem appropriate to me.
Okay. Anything else in there, Tom?
There was some, a suggestion regarding approval of an agenda. Mr. Painter, would you like to discuss that? Basically, if you look at our, what we have on page 4, so order of business, under D, order of business. Before, we would have determination of a quorum, call to order, excusing a member not present, and then approval of the minutes. There's a suggestion to include approving or adopting the agenda. So how that would work would be after we had to excuse a member before we approve the minutes. There would be a motion to adopt the agenda, and the clerk of the board would be asked if there are any add-ons. So currently, sometimes we'll have an add-on or two, and if we do have add-ons, the clerk would say, yes, we have 2 add-ons, here are the topics. And then, once that is stated, the board would accept the agenda, including the add-ons, as the agenda for that meeting. And then we would proceed as normal.
I've seen other meeting members or organizations do it that way. I never understood the advantage or disadvantage of that.
So you're saying doing the add-on before we get started, but quite often we don't know if there's an add-on until after executive
Yeah,
session.
the only add-ons that we're talking about are ones that when we come into the session room, they've been added at a later date after
After
the
we
agenda
receive
was
it.
sent out. Correct.
The-
But if
the-
there's any add-ons that were needed after an executive session, those would not be included because we wouldn't know the decision.
So those would have to go to the next session.
No.
No, they would be
no.
added on at the
We
end.
could still do it.
You could
Okay.
make it, you would make a motion to add it in there.
Sure.
And the concern was that I looked at was that the draft agenda is put out on Friday. It is reviewed over the weekend and then over Monday and Tuesday. When we walk in on Wednesday, what it actually is still the draft. So then when you walk into the desk, you have add-ons that are usually here to your right. What that does is take the draft from a draft agenda to the agenda with those add-ons. It
And how
makes,
does that make us better?
How does it change what we
How does that change what we do? We just, if we don't adopt the agenda as the agenda, we just go through our pieces and,
Well, I guess
So it's a
the add-ons
proposed-
are never add-ons in the consent agenda. Typically, the add-ons are the non-consent agenda, so we're going to have to make a motion anyhow. You're right, Commissioner Humphrey.
I would just say that prior to the actual adoption of the rules of procedure, made a great effort to have those documents to you, and that rules of procedure required me to have it 3 days before the meeting. Well, I guess you don't count Saturday and Sunday, so 3 days before the meeting would be whatever time Friday it was forwarded to you, as long as it was by midnight. that constituted 3 days before the meeting. Whether or not but before we did that, so as we came along and there were needs to be addressed, we would address those, and then on Tuesday evening before Wednesday, I would post a revised agenda on the web and also on SharePoint. And my understanding was that the board didn't want that to happen anymore, that they wanted it to be Friday, and then if there were any add-ons, that the people would have to come in and address those add-ons if there was a necessity to do that. So it's simply a procedure either way. And it was long before we had consent agenda.
Yeah, that's just the last year.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm. But it's whatever makes it pliable and easier for you. The review and all is done substantially the same way everything else is done, so.
I believe there's a, Mr. Painter, maybe you're referring to a Robert's Rules of Order where an agenda is officially adopted
Correct.
towards the beginning of a meeting, and then whatever follows from the adoption of that official agenda, because prior to then, it's only in draft.
When this is when the agenda is actually presented to them, the word draft is taken off before it appears. If you look at your agenda right now, the word draft is no longer there.
Right.
It remains there until they're printed off the day of the session. But basically, they are exactly what you received
So
on
if
Friday.
we adopted the agenda at the beginning of the meeting,
Or
would
approved
we,
it,
and
whatever.
something came up during the meeting that we wanted to do that isn't on the agenda, could we make a motion to modify the agenda to be able to do that?
Yes.
Well, in effect, we will after executive session if we want to do an add-on, and it's the same thing, doing an add-on.
But we'd have to make a motion to change the agenda to include an add-on, and then we motion on the.
Seems to me we're just adding an extra step,
Yep,
which we
seems to
currently
me
do.
we are. We're adding 2 extra steps. We're adding, approve the agenda, and then if we want to change the agenda, we'd now have to make a motion to change the agenda, so.
I'm with the consent agenda, non-consent agenda, because it's provided to you, and the rules are that if anyone has anything that's on the consent agenda that wants further discussion, it can be removed just as it was today. But you formally approve that consent agenda by motion and second as presented or as modified, like you did today. And the process is that item then becomes the very first item under non-consent for you to further discuss. Any add-ons are always addressed subsequent to the conclusion of the non-consent, and oftentimes before you would have an executive session that might require additional action there and after. But
I understand all that.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out why it's appropriate to approve the agenda at the early part in the meeting when we have it in front of us and we know what we're going to follow.
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
The only advantage would be to let the public know up front that we have add-ons, and that the agenda that has been posted, we have add-ons, and they would know that at the beginning of the meeting versus at the end of the meeting.
In other words, the agenda is as was posted on Friday, and that subsequent to that, there are these add-ons for the board to consider in their non-consent agenda.
Correct, I mean, that would be the
Is that
advantage,
what
would be,
you're-
instead of waiting to the end for the add-ons, you
And
would
say,
put
oh, we
those-
have-
we'd say, here are the add-ons that we have, we would still present them at the end, but it would just let the public know that we have some add-ons to the agenda, and it's different than what was posted.
I think the public is really all that concerned. I mean, and they are, but I mean, they're going to hear it an hour later anyhow. It's not going to, it's still going to be out there. It's transparent.
I just assume leave it as we currently do.
Okay, well,
Is it-
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
We do have,
It was just a suggestion.
yes. The other suggestion was in the definition section, which is section 2, that we place, currently the definitions are in alphabetical order. The suggestion was place them in the order that we actually review things. So regular agenda, consent agenda, county discussion, regular session, executive. So it's in the order that we would do things versus alphabetical order. That was another suggestion.
That's fine.
That sounds fine with me.
Okay. Mr. Painter, anything
Good.
else?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
And keep in mind, our agendas are so detailed. I mean, most agendas are by block title, not by what the actual
Yep.
listed issues
So we
are.
can
Right,
thank our clerk for providing that detail.
right.
And because we have that detail, there are very few things that get left out or missed. And we need to thank our clerk for doing that pre-work for us, because it is a considerable amount of work.
It is.
Thank you. That was one of the requirements a number of years ago of the very first commissioner I worked for. God rest his soul.
Okay.
So I will make any of those changes, and I will present this to the board on Wednesday,
Okay,
this Wednesday, and then it will be effective the following Wednesday.
okay.
So-
And we'll get new copies.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Prior to the Wednesday meeting. Do we have anything else for today?
Public participation.
Public participation, is there anyone in the public that would like to participate in our meeting today?
Look at all this public here.
I see none, so is there anything else we need to cover today?
Can I just real quickly, sir,
Yes.
since Brandon is in the audience, I don't want to put you on the spot. We've had issues with our phones.
Oh,
And,
We have issues with our phone?
And
We
Brandon
have
does
no-
have I think we have a quick update. They are working on the fiber lines as we speak, correct, Brandon? They've
Yes, we
replaced
have a
all the
vendor-
equipment.
We have a vendor down here currently doing some tests on the fiber lines that run between the courthouse and the admin building, so.
But you still can call
And
our,
whose fiber lines are those?
They're ours.
Okay,
but the public still can't get into 7300, our main line, so they still can't call in.
Hoping to have enough.
And I can't get out either.
Not yet.
All offices should have an IP phone. They should be working. I was just notified of one that's not working, so. And I think we're gonna go ahead and get some cell phones for the auditor's office, because they're having some problems with their housing, so they need some more phones.
and how long have we had this issue?
It started last week sometime.
Yeah.
I was out the day it started, I'm not sure which day it was.
It's been about a week, hasn't it?
The cold spell.
Mhm.
Karen said the last time this happened was during a cold spell they had like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like this. Or maybe longer than that even.
So somewhere down in the pipes it may freeze and stretch or something, break the
Something.
Is this
fiber
on,
lines?
is this on fiber?
Yeah.
So probably in a splice box, splice connection somewhere,
Could be,
water.
could be. So we'll let you know as soon as we have an update.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you. Then there being no further business to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Ubel,
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye. Thank you for joining us today, and God bless.